Hi there, it's Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and I wanted to talk today about how to turn training into money. Because when you're going to invest in training, it can feel like a really, really big investment. And if you can think forward in terms of how that investment is going to pay dividends for you, or help your employer think forward in terms of how that investment will pay dividends for them, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to make the decision to invest in yourself, or for your employer to make the decision to invest in you. Okay, so we are launching our Business Analyst Blueprint right now, and we do have lots of virtual training available to you from Bridging the Gap, specifically to help you as a business analyst. But what I'm going to share today is not specific to our programs. It really can apply to any kind of training or professional development that you might choose to invest in. Okay, and the other thing I want to say before we get started, because things are pretty uncertain in the world right now. If you were on our FAQ webinar last week, you heard me talk a little bit about this and how in uncertain times like these, how tempting it can be to actually create safety for ourselves by kind of constraining our growth, right? Or constraining our resources, you can see me just holding everything in, and it can feel safer to kind of just hold things where they are and hope that, a year from now things will be more certain and you'll be able to take more action. Feel safer to take a risk. And my experience is actually exactly the opposite. So in times of uncertainty, which you can always kind of find, something that's uncertain, but right now, obviously a special time. But it's actually, you're holding yourself back still by not choosing to make that investment in your growth. And it's the people who are, you're not going to be any further ahead 6-12 months from now by staying in the same place. In fact, you're going to be further behind, because really, if you're not growing, you're falling behind. Okay. Other people are growing and expanding their skills, expanding their experiences. And so you want to look at how can you put that kind of mindset into place for your career, whether it's through training or other kinds of professional development. Whatever you're doing, the worst thing to do is to say, things are going crazy, I'm going to just hold myself up and just do my little piece and hope that at the end of the day, everything works out. Worst thing to do. Best thing to do is, how can I be part of solving the problem, right? And in this kind of environment, organizations need business analysis now more than ever. We need you more than ever to be doing great business analysis work. It's going to help organizations break out of the analysis paralysis of what to do in uncertain times, and you're going to help us all create positive change. So just something to keep in mind if you're it's just not the right time for this. Okay, again, so let's talk about how to turn money or training into money. And again, applies regardless of the kind of training that you're looking at, but you do want to take these principles into how you leverage the training for your own career advancement. So the biggest thing is to take action, right? So the learning itself isn't necessarily going to have that result. The credential that you get at the end, that might have a little bit of benefit. You might be able to put that on your resume, and it might get you in, it might give you a little extra reputation or a little extra status and lead to something, new opportunity for you. So that can have financial benefit, just like that little credential, right? It could get you in the door of an interview if you're putting it out in the right place in your resume, and they're looking between different candidates, and one has recent training and one doesn't. So that it can have value just as that kind of individual line item. But where it really, really, really starts to have value is when you take action based on that training, when you take a technique that you learned about and actually apply it in your work as a business analyst, or even if you haven't gotten started in a business analyst role yet. And so I'm just referring to my notes here. I have a lot that I want to make sure we cover about this. And so if you see me look down, it's just because I want to make sure I don't miss a point. So an example of this, and so what that ends up looking like, it's not just a line item on your resume, it's an actual project that you can add to your resume. And it's a project that internally could create a lot of momentum for you. So an example from my career, I was an associate editor before I moved into quality assurance. And that role of associate editor, it kind of killed me a little bit. It was so boring and so tedious, and I did not like the work whatsoever. I was just doing anything I could to get out. I had started applying to other jobs. I just was in this really bad headspace about it, right? And then I finally got onto a tech team. I had to work my way onto a project team from our department. And I was still under the wing of this senior business, or not even business analyst, senior editor who wanted to do things a certain way. And was like, no, we only fill this role, right? And then you can do this little slice of this role. And I was like, okay, well, it's a start. So fast forward a couple months into this of me doing that little slice of that little role and just, all right, this is going to turn into something. It's got to create something new. It's a little bit more interesting than my past work. Still want more, but it's at least a start. He goes on vacation for 3 weeks. It was like the opportunity of a lifetime. So I got to go to the meetings because he wasn't going to the meetings. And, I just started volunteering to do stuff at the meetings. I was like, I'll do that. I didn't even know how to do some of those things, but I got actually some on-the-job training from a technical trainer in our department, how to use a specific tool. They were just so grateful that somebody was going to do it. Like, Laura, we'll teach you. I'll spend a half hour teaching you what to do if you're going to spend time doing this. And so by the time he got back, I had totally reframed the role. I had totally gotten known as the person who could do some really important work. I've solved a really big problem. And a month or two later, I ended up getting hired into the quality assurance team. So that is my story of how I got into quality assurance, which then it shifted everything for me, because that quality assurance role was really interesting, challenging work. I got about a 40% salary increase from associate editor to QA. So I was there for 1.5 years and did a lot of work. And then that ended up what prompted getting into the business analyst role, which was again another 40% salary increase. Okay, so 2 really big salary increases from a very entry level, just out of college position from QA into business analysis. But it all started with me taking action and doing something different. And that's what you want to be thinking about when you're investing in training, is how can you take action and do that work right now so that you get recognized as the one who is on the job and doing something different. And that's when opportunities start to come in your direction as well. Okay, so that's how you could think about training, is securing that internal promotion, which then again often comes with a salary increase, or being qualified for new jobs outside of your company. So one of our recent course participants, Adam Hessler, shared his story around this, where he was able to so he did the same thing where he started applying, he did a business process project and helped solve a business problem and did some business analysis work. And so right away, his job got more fulfilling. And then fast forward a little bit, and he was able to take that experience and qualify for a business analyst role in another company, and he saw a $14,000 difference. So you might be looking at a training program that costs $2,000, thinking that's a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. I don't want to overestimate that. That can feel like a lot of money, depending on where you're at financially. But also, what can it lead to for you, right? So in Adam's case, it was $14,000. And I'm just going to read a little bit of what he shared, because it was just such a powerful share. And this came on my LinkedIn post, on my LinkedIn feed last week. So if you use your current position to do projects following along in these programs for credit, and that's what we apply, we help you apply it in Bridging the Gap. It's a big part of our learning model. Then that means that 3 new projects on your resume or more, which is worth 5 times or more of what the course is going to cost next year. So he's talking about the $3,000 investment that the blueprint is going up to next year. So don't believe me, watch this. For me, getting a business analyst position meant an extra $14,000 per year, and having that position I was passionate about, I would say was worth about 2 hours a day. Less frustration multiplied by what I was making per hour at $2,000 per year. So I'm not kidding about the 2 hours. The lack of challenge in my current position was killing me and killed my passion for doing things after work. So I can really sympathize with this, because that's how I felt in my associate editor role. It didn't just affect the 8 hours a day that I had to be in my cubicle doing work that wasn't fulfilling. It like bled over into everything else. And I wasn't that fun to hang out with. I would like bring my work. I remember bringing my work to like a girls' weekend and being like, look at this, what I have to do. It's so boring. I can't handle it anymore. And they're like, Laura, let it go. And, it was killing me. So I understand that. And I don't know that, Adam put a monetary value on that. You have to put that value for yourself. For me, that was like worth a lot to get out of that situation. Okay, so then he goes on. I was able to do a project that was a big contributor to a $4,000 raise. So he got a raise internally to his company based on just doing that project we talked about. I never knew this until last week. So he didn't get a promotion into business analysis. He didn't get into a formal business analyst role, but that project still led to him getting a raise. So it paid for himself right away. And that is a total of, would be a total of $20,000 over 2 years. So roughly an extra $10,000 a year. Assuming the average career lasts only 5 years and lowballing gains of $5,000 a year would still be a total of $25,000. So when you think about your investment in training, whether it's a $2,000 program or a $10,000 program or a $100 program, right? Think about what does that mean for you going forward, and how can you leverage that into career gains, because it all starts with taking action. Okay, and let's see. The other piece I want to share about this here, because it's the fulfilling work and the work that was killing me piece, that when I read this comment from Adam, just like really, really pulls at my heart. Like you see me keep like pulling at my heart. One, because I've had that experience myself, but also because when you think about that feeling of not being in the right role and really not being fully leveraging all the skills and experience you have, or the capabilities you have, right? And it's like there's this disconnect, like your capabilities are up here and your role is down here. And so you want to bring your role up to your capabilities so that you're constantly growing. Like you can't grow if your capabilities are here and your role only requires you to be here. Like the role is holding you down. It's like pulling you back. So you want to bring the role up to where you are, and then you can start to grow together, right? And so then your role is going to stretch you, and your capabilities will stretch, and you'll keep laddering up. And at that point, my hands are way beyond where the camera is. So if you don't change that role and shift that role by like bringing your assignments up, by just start doing some new stuff that's much more interesting, like I did in QA, like Adam did in his role, then that's the only way to shift that. Because your employer, maybe once in a while somebody will be like, oh, that person's really disconnected, right? But they have to see that. They have to see evidence of that in order to pull you into a role, in order to pull your role up to your capabilities. They need to see that evidence. They don't know your capabilities are up here. What they might actually be seeing is like frustration, right? Oh, that person's just really negative. They're really frustrated. I don't know that I want them on my project team, right? And so you need to consciously make the decision to pull your responsibilities up, and then you're going to start to get noticed for those opportunities, which will lead to more opportunities. Okay, so that's how you turn training into money for you. Let's talk about your employer, because this does benefit them as well. And not all employers are going to cover the cost of training. Some do, but I've been really surprised as we've watched the Blueprint registrations. And I thought that this time around, we would see a lot more companies coming in and asking for invoices and POs and paying by check. And we've seen some of that, and we support that process, and we're always like happy to move that along. And we've seen some come in that way, but by and large, most of the people that have joined the Blueprint so far have invested on their own behalf. And so you're in good company if that's you. But if you still feel like you could like help your employer, or this is something that you can take as a nugget for the future too, is one thing you want to do is commit to bringing improvements back to your organization. So if you think about it, like fixing something and finding a requirement that you would have missed in the requirements process, probably a relatively small amount of work. It's like one extra model, maybe one discussion with a stakeholder you would have overlooked, one way of looking at things, right? Fixing that requirement once you're in test, expensive. fixing that requirement once you've deployed and now a customer is using that system, way more expensive. So the more you can do to fix your business analysis process, it's like a huge gain. It's so exponential. And you only have to make a very, very small shift in your business analysis process to receive huge gains in terms of your projects and your project efficiencies. So that, that's the selling point. You're like, I'm going to bring back some ways to improve my process and make sure we don't miss requirements. They don't have to be huge, just even small incremental changes to your process. And this is why that's so important, because right now we're missing these kinds of requirements and they're getting found further on. So one small shift, again, can have a really enormous impact. Okay, and the other way to think about it is think about the time that you might invest in meetings today. And what if that meeting is like rehashing requirements that were like already decided, right? Or going over the same thing again and again and again and again. What's the cost of that meeting? If you have 8 people in a meeting and that's, average maybe $50 an hour for that, what those people are making, maybe more when you start to build in benefits and all that, taxes that your company's paying on that, it could be easily $75, $100 an hour. Let's just say 50. So 8 people, $50 an hour, that's $400 an hour of meeting. So you streamline or eliminate 5 of those meetings, you just made up a $2,000 program. Right? So those are the kinds of things you want to talk to your employer about how business analysis can actually make your projects more efficient like this. Okay. And the other way to think about it is, can you tie the training back to an initiative? So right now, organizations, like they probably have their 2018 plan. They've got budgets for maybe some for training, some for project work, some for new initiatives, right? So can you tie your skill development to your ability to participate on a project in a new way, possibly saving contractor dollars, or maybe there's training like in that project budget or some discretionary funds. So sometimes you can, like, if you start to make the connection for your employer between what they're investing in with you and what's going to happen over the course of the year, a lot of times, you can free up money that might be in different places. Okay, still not all employers are going to cover it, and so it really comes back to you making the decision, like, does this investment have a potential return for me? And the last thing I want to say about that, like, it's okay to be a lifelong learner as well. Like, you might have invested in something before and now you're like, oh gosh, I want to do something else again. Like, what? Like, why should I do that? Like, shouldn't I be done by now, right? And I'm a lifelong learner. Like, I haven't gotten to the point where I'm like on video with you and sharing these kinds of things by staying in my box and constraining my growth. Like, I actually invested in a pretty big program just last year that is all about doing video and all about doing launches and all about showing up in different ways and figuring out how to connect with your community, okay? And that's been a lot of fun, and it's been very rewarding professionally. Just a couple weeks ago, I invested in the biggest program I've ever invested in my personal life, to join a women-only mastermind of other entrepreneurs in a similar space and receive some really spot-on coaching. Again, big investment. So as you grow, the investments that you make are actually going to get bigger, and they're going to be more impactful, and you're going to be able to turn that ROI around on them more quickly. Okay, so start where you're at and make an investment and scale up from there, and don't expect that like one thing is going to be done and then you're done, right? Oh, I did this thing, now I'm done. No, you're never done. There's always more. There's always more ways to expand. You are going to level up your role, bring your role up to your capabilities, and then keep leveling them up together. And the support system you build around you is just going to help push you up and support that growth in a more positive, faster way. Okay, so I do want to check in case there's questions. This is a live video. If you're watching the replay, that's awesome too. Last thing I wanted to say. Okay, so because if you're sitting on like, do I do this thing or do I not do this thing? And what does this mean? And why do I have to wait 4 months, right, to receive the benefit of a program? Like when I get that certificate of completion or when I'm done. When I invested in that big mastermind a few weeks ago, it was an immediate shift. And I never quite got this before because it was just such a big growth edge for me that I never quite got how making an investment itself could be valuable. Like I hadn't even gone to the place, been a part of the group, introduced myself, nothing, right? Nothing had actually, I had received nothing besides going through the sales process and saying, yes, I'm going to commit. But all of a sudden I saw myself differently. And that was like this immediate return on the investment of, I'm the kind of person that invests in this sort of thing. I'm the kind of business owner that's never going to stop growing. And so it can mean the same thing to you. Like when you invest in a BA training program, it can mean I'm the kind of person that has a support network. I'm the kind of person that's serious about their business analyst career. I'm the kind of person that is going to do what it takes to make this career goal happen, whatever it takes, right? Because now I've made a choice to invest in myself and get myself that support network that's going to help me take the next step. So darn it, I'm going to take the next step, right? So just think about that win. What would that feel like to you? And is it worth it just for that, almost even for that alone? Of course, there's a ton more stuff that's going to happen, and you don't actually have to wait 4 months to see the results. So one of last year's participants, Roshini, she was in a support analyst role when she joined the Blueprint. She was one of the very first people that joined. And 4 weeks into the program, she had already applied a business process. She was working ahead on module 2, and we hadn't even released that content yet, and doing some use cases and functional requirements. And she was given official half-time business analysis responsibilities in her role. So that happened 4 weeks into the program. And then we had another 3 months to be working together. So it was awesome. All right. So you don't have to wait till the end to see the results. If you're using the training and actually applying what you're learning, you're going to see those results right away. Okay. So that's what I had to share. Thank you so much for watching. Whatever you do, invest in yourself. So important. It will create more growth than you can ever imagine in your life and in your career. So again, this is Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and we help you start your business analyst career.